Oh, I think I found
Oh,
it.
yeah, recording in progress. So
Well,
did you suddenly have rights to do that?
well, I'm not 100%. We'll see how well it works. Because, like I said, it may say it's recording, but it's still the Linux client. So we'll test it
It
out.
says recording on this end, so we'll see what happens. Yeah, this
All right.
meeting's being recorded. Alrighty, yay!
Yeah, I clicked record to cloud, so maybe who knows if that's a good idea or not.
Well, it's
All
that
right.
or do it to your computer.
Yeah, I've installed this via Snap, so I'm not 100% sure where it stores it. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
not worry about it right now.
Yep, back to Zoom support. All right, so for my design process, I went through, and this is where I started inside FigJam. As Adam was talking about defining your users, breaking up your app idea into user stories, that was effectively step one, where I just opened up FigJam, felt it out a little bit. It, pretty easy and straightforward to be able to use the app. So I was able to just basically get started. So I just opened up a table and then just kind of broke down the really, really basic overall ideas of what you should be able to do. Then from there, I went and started creating these section objects and just threw post-it notes on that, just kind of still broad overview, but dialing in a little bit. On the user stories that I felt the need to just document my thought process, I went and started adding these little blocks in. Um, yeah, it was just effectively clicking around, finding the utility that it made it make sense, and moving on because I didn't want to spend too much time. And I did have a lot of this on paper, so I drew my thoughts out on paper before putting them into the um, app here, and I just go through and break out each user story. Um, some of the user stories I could some of the user stories you can actually lump together. So when I did that, I made sure to mention which user story it belonged to be able to solve the criteria that I was making. Now, I only went up to user story 9 here because I did get some of my other possible ideas, but they're stretch goals, so I don't want to waste too much time on them. They're documented, but that's as far as it's going to go. If I have an idea or something like that, I'll jam it into the piece I'll show next. The really cool thing about FigJam is it's collaborative. So after I designed this up, I asked Adam for review, and he was able to go into the file and actually I shared the file with him, and he was able to go in and put comments on things to be able to help collaborate with it basically. So from there, I went into creating a project here, which I forgot to go all the way into. And no, I got that backwards. From there, what I did was I came into the issues for my repo and I started registering each user story as as an issue. So think of it like a support ticket when you're dealing with a piece of software, or if any of that's familiar. And I basically just screenshotted the section, put some details in the issue, and then this one's a bad example. Here we go. And then as I went through building stuff, I added in comments like, here's a design decision that I made to where my redirect was going to happen after my logout. Um, these right here are sub issues basically. So when I took from my user story, this create account, log in, log out, well, the basics are in order to create an account, you need a user model. So I created an issue to track that user model. of which that's where my database design diagram comes in, where I give the overall and then the focused on the actual table that's going to get created on the fields that I'm worried about right now. I created did the code, got everything working, and wrote my tests for it. And then as part of my submission process, I attached the results of the test into the actual issue. So if this was a larger collaborative environment and if there was a reviewer, they'd have everything at their fingertips to be able to check and make sure that this was good, to kind of streamline the pull request process. So from there, a pull request was created. And again, this may be a little bit redundant, but I attached the test there. Inside the pull request, it lists all of the commits. We've seen this stuff before, so that can be verified and whatnot. And in a more collaborative project, you would usually have a lot of comments and stuff going back and forth about questions to do with the pull request and all of that.
DJ, is this inside a repo or a project?
This is inside the repo itself.
Okay.
Okay. But you do see that I have a project link to it. And what I did was I went through and created a project. And when I linked the project, all of the issues came right over. They just showed up as tasks. I started adding different categories or different columns inside the table to help me track this in my mind. And as you see, I've got some of my notes on basic statuses and just short descriptions. I think inside here, okay, this directly links to the issue. I thought that maybe it's the ones, okay, so the ones that do not have issues linked to them, they have this area where you can write a description and all of that stuff. But for the ones that are linked to issues, if there was more notes that you wanted to add, even if the issue's closed, you can still add more comments to it and everything. And it supports attaching links. It supports embedding files into it. And it's pretty powerful for keeping track of all of your stuff. Now, how I got these issues to link, let me back up, was by creating a hyperlink right here. It's basically exactly like a mention in any of your chat programs or anything like that. And with any one of your issues, you can hit the ellipsis and you can copy the link. So it's really just a couple minutes to be able to link that together. And then it keeps the whole flow all together. So you can see all of the things that needed to be done to solve user story number 2. I also went through and I'm trying to find the one that I had difficulties with, which was the OpenAI call right here. So when I was working through the OpenAI call, I made some notes on how the logic would work. But once I got into the OpenAI call itself, I ran into a few different difficulties. So what I did for my own personal tracking is I listed those challenges inside of the issue. So they're not in a stray notebook somewhere. They're not on a Post-it note. They're attached to the repository. So the majority of the notes that I need to remember, why I made a design decision, where I ran into a hiccup, and what I did to mitigate that, and where I had assumptions on data and it turned out to be different, I made sure to document that all the way through. And even like right here is a stretch goal that I decided that I'm going to look into later, which is the async OpenAI model. I don't know if I need it or not, but I'll have to determine on That's something for determining like efficiency down the road or whatnot. And I had a few different issues, so I started adding a bunch of stuff to this one. And then pretty much the end of the conversation is my tests. Now these tests I write before I register the pull request. So, but I'm not writing the tests before I write the model. So this really isn't test driven. It's just kind of in parallel. The nice thing about the project itself is, one, you can see all the organization. When you do the merge on the pull request, it automatically registers this stuff is done. As long as it's connected to the product or the project, a lot of the things that it knows is going to happen, the subsequent actions, it just takes care of them. And then I added the boards view to be able to give another way to this makes it easier to see the tasks in just a different layout. I usually prefer looking at the table. This is in here because code is for everyone else. The project's also for everyone else to look at. I use it for my tracking, but project files are usually for stakeholders who want to know the status of how complete things are. And normally, a lot of these other user stories that the subsequent issues that I'm coming up with connected to the user stories, a lot of times those would already be defined in here. I'm just kind of I'm adding them as I think of them.
Could you categorize these? I'm not suggesting you do, just out of curiosity. I see the out of scope on the right. So
Mhm.
that reminds me of like binning the, hey, must do versus like to do versus maybe later.
That's
Does this allow you to
exactly
do
it.
that?
Yep, that's exactly it. None of these have, as you can see, with these listed as drafts, there are no issues assigned to them. But let's say, for example, I'm going to implement Factory Boy. Okay, so I go into here and right here, do you see this? You can turn it into an issue, which goes back to the repository, creates a new issue, and you start that process. Does that answer your question or no?
Absolutely. Thank you.
Yeah, I put them there so I don't lose track of them. And again, no post-it notes. And to be honest, someone else can look and see these are the other things you plan on doing with this. Other things that I played with, just because being a quality guy and all that stuff, is KPIs. And I know these are extremely important for stakeholders and whatnot. So I just played with the graphing stuff in here isn't superb, but it's enough. So you can just lay out different methods. And a lot of this is for demonstration on showing the process to, an interviewer or someone looking at the project or whatnot. Ooh, there we go. I think that's pretty much it. What questions does everybody have? We'll go that route. And
I have a quick question. First off, thanks for sharing. It's nice to be able to see kind of like your thought process behind doing all of this.
mhm.
And I will definitely be trying to use this for the group project and see if I can implement this for my personal one as well. About how long would you say that it took you to be able to do all the setup for this?
I think I invested maybe roughly a day, day and a half. And I'm not talking about just this setup. I'm talking about creating the diagram, creating the SQL diagram, all of the other pieces. And what led me to move it into this way is I didn't like the fact that they were just documents sitting in a docs directory. Somebody would have to go pick through those. With the user stories, that's the suggestion Adam made. He said that generally projects would take their user stories and create issues into them, create issues from them, to start tracking that stuff with inside the repo. So I followed that, and the rest of it just kind of felt like a natural flow afterwards. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you.
Yeah, it takes a little longer to set up, but so far it feels like it's paid off a lot.
It seems like this is a very mature professional habit that you've made easy for yourself with a little bit of investment.
And I'm not gonna lie, the first couple times I had to force myself to remember, register the issue, go through and whatnot. And now it's become it's started to become muscle memory and kind of fun, to tell you the truth. Because, when I'm sitting there, I'm like, okay, what am I going to work on next? Well, let me go look at the user story and see what I've done. And it just kind of jumps right out at you. Here's the next logical flow to that. This is the next piece to be able to move on.
Would you mind if no one else had any questions, if anyone else has any questions, I'll stand by before I ask. Hey, DJ, would you mind doing like a quick demo issue, like walk it from your user story website, it's a fake issue, create your issue on your repo, show us in the project, and then do like a quick like test code file, merge it, pull it, whatever. Do you think that would take that long to do that?
I'd prefer to do that in a different repo.
Oh, yep, no problem. Got it.
So how about what we do is I'll set that as an idea, and I can go into any one of the other repos I already have because they don't have projects, and I could go that route and get yeah.
And some
Let's
other
look at
time too. It doesn't have to be today.
yeah.
Thank you very much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
thank
then
you.
to tell you the truth, anybody interested in seeing that, just use the same thread that
Yes.
yep, and then just
Yep.
pop in interest there, and we'll figure out a good time to do that.
Yeah, actually, this time tomorrow might be a good time, depending on what we have in the calendar. And I'm looking real quick.
Yeah, could you look at that really quick, if you don't mind?
Yeah. So right after stand down tomorrow does look good. So 7:30 to 7 to 7:30 my time, and I think that's 9 to 9:30 Central Time. So same as today.
Works for me.
Yeah, that works for me. And then now that we've felt through some of the uh growing pains with Zoom too.
I mean, like you were saying, DJ, since you're the only one interacting with this, the realism and the complexity.
There's less of it, but yeah.
But the merge conflict is the thing I'd specifically be focused on. If we were going to delay merging until we get to GitHub for the reason of documenting the design decisions, the trade-offs publicly on GitHub rather than in someone's personal repo, it makes a lot of sense. But we need to simulate what a merge conflict would look like, meaning advancing the main project after.
Yeah, see, I think the key behind the merge here, how about I end the recording here if I can figure out how to do that part.
So I just texted Adam. I'm sorry, not texted. Slack to say that we're interested in using this same time slot tomorrow. I can't add to the calendar, but maybe we can have him do that as well.